Now, this remarkable incident that the Dutch government seized
Yeah.
Nexperia, the Chinese-owned company. First of all, the Dutch needs to understand right now, Netherlands has about 27 billion assets in China,
Yeah.
and they exporting 21 billion annually to China. They
Yeah.
also have 1,000 subsidiaries, Dutch company subsidiaries located in China. So China can do a lot of harm to the Netherlands. They need to understand that.
Mm.
Uh, my interpretation, my guess, and some other social media people analysis is that because of what we said, this is secondary or long arm jurisdiction, that ASML is now whatever ASML is going to sell, which is a huge percent of this business is selling overseas. So now China is essentially seized control of that. Okay,
Yeah.
that got the Dutch government into panic.
Yeah.
Now, of course, the US has been pressuring the Dutch for a long time, a lot of pressure on that. So that's very much part of it. But also this latest thing, the escalation that affected ASML in the direct way, probably got them into a panic mode. Now, the Europeans sometimes, not sometimes, many times, when they in the panic mode, they have the tendency to make things worse, right? They're not solving the problem, they make it worse. Do you think that's part of it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, I've had to deal with panic situations many times. As you know, I was duty solicitor
Mm-hmm.
at the High Court, and one of the reasons I was able to be there for 12 years was precisely because I never panicked. So
Oh.
I always know, and I could always see signs of panic. And the thing about decisions made in panic is that they're always bad decisions. They invariably are. What you need to do is you need to take a step back. You need to think it through. You need to come up with a plan. You need to work out the plan.
Mm-hmm.
China does that, by the way. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
look, we talked
Mm-hmm.
about the 1960s, and I don't have to tell people in China that the 1960s was a complicated and difficult time in China.
Fine.
I'm not going to discuss any of that here. The point is that even then, China made plans to
Mm-hmm.
prepare for the possibility that it would be placed under siege, and this is why it started to do its work on rare earths. So that is a plan. You work it out. You sit down. You say to yourself, what do I have to do? And you take it step by step. And sometimes you have to move quite fast. But if you do it in that way, if you work to a plan, you can usually find a way. This shows no sign of any planning at all. It's a decision made without any real thought. It throws away um, fundamental legal principles. I mean, it's all done without any proper recourse to law, in fact, deeply abusive of law.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's all done, obviously, because demands and pressures from the Americans have become overbearing. And you are scared. What is going to happen is that in 10 years' time, TMSL will not exist. It is. I mean, it really will not exist. Its entire business, the entire business that the Netherlands has in this area, which has helped the Netherlands enormously, and the
Yeah.
Netherlands, it's a major export for the Netherlands is high precision tools and machines and
Mm-hmm.
things like that, and not just the lithography machines, but this is all going to fail because you are destroying completely your reputation
Yeah.
and you are incentivizing others to duplicate what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And the others have the greater resources and they will do it better. I mean, the reason they haven't done it up to now is because it hasn't profited them to do it. But
Mm-hmm.
now it does. And so they will do it better. It's stupid. But people, when they are in a panic, they do things stupidly. And this is another example.
What they're saying is that they are not entirely seizing, they are seizing the management of the company, meaning all the all the decisions. Now, in principle, the owners, whatever the profit, the owners still have the slice for that, but the owners cannot make decision, whatever this decision, right?
I find that even worse. I mean, it's like the same story with seizing the Russian assets.
Yeah.
I mean, you come up with a scheme which to try to sort of conceal,
Mm.
disguise the illegality of what you're doing,
Yeah. Yeah.
and all it does is it proves that you recognize its own illegality.
Uh-huh.
I mean, the idea that you could seize control of a company, well, you could sack all of the managers, the senior management of a company, and place your own people in charge. And
Mhm.
that isn't going to affect the rights of the owner, even though the owner has no control any longer of what the company does. I mean, that is ridiculous.
Mhm.
It's insulting. It is stupid again. I mean, if you're going to seize the company, I mean, you shouldn't seize the company.
Mhm.
That is absolutely wrong. But just do it. Act on your own conviction. Show the power of decision. Again, doing it in this way shows that you have no real belief in the rightness of what you do.
The Duchess, I thought that should know better. They were good merchants and traders
Mm.
around the world for a while, isn't it? I thought
Well,
they would know
absolutely.
these things.
They were very ruthless and tough traders, as the people in China probably know. I mean, but they were. They were absolutely very, very clever and very good at this kind of thing. But now, as I said, Lars, I like so many people in the West, they're losing control. They're starting to panic. They're making decisions in haste. They're
Mhm.
not thinking them through. When people are frightened and in panic, they're angry. There's that well known and very correct expression, decisions made in anger are
Mhm.
repented at leisure. And it's absolutely the case. And this is going to be a disaster for the Netherlands.
Yeah. And China just did two things. One is the Shell, Dutch company Shell is now under investigation by the Chinese government. So,
Mm.
and then China put an export control on Nexperia because now it's the Dutch is taking over that company. What China is basically limiting what the Chinese part of the Nexperia can do. So actually, one of the things the Dutch government says it's national security, right? China actually doesn't want its Chinese part of the Nexperia has some intellectual properties there as well. They don't want
Yeah.
that to be seized by the Dutch government.
Yeah.
So they're protecting that part in
Yes.
China. So
Well,
it's
the
interesting.
thing to understand about this is that, yes, China had some benefits from this company.
Mhm.
The Netherlands had many more.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah. Exactly.
it was getting Chinese expertise into its supply
Yeah.
chains.
Yeah. And
And
it's
that's
a
going to be lost now.
yeah, and somebody even said this is probably is a Dutch version of the TikTok because we
Yeah.
know, right? TikTok is there's technology, there's a customer base. It's just simply a good company
Yeah.
that now the US is grabbing it. Um, we don't know that right now. I actually give us the TikTok deal 50%, 50-50. I don't think it's more than 50% chance it's going through now with all the
No,
things going on.
no, no,
Remember, China haven't signed anything, so
no, no.
there's the deal is not done. A lot of things can still happen. Even
Yes,
some Chinese US media agrees that a lot of things can still happen. So
yes.
anyway, what with this company is that actually Nexperia, part of the reason the Chinese took over is it has encountered some financial problems and etc.
Yeah,
So China is the one who took it over, and part of the reason it revitalized this company is because the Chinese, both technology and the market, that helped this company. And
yes,
now they're going to grab it, very much like a TikTok. It's
absolutely.
actually there's one more company. Grinder is the one that started all these things. Grinder, the gay app, the Grinder,
Yeah.
that some people saying Speaker Johnson has an account there. Okay, it's
Oh,
almost
really?
like an open secret. He has an account in Grinder. But
I
anyway,
didn't.
so Grinder was a U.S. company, and then a Chinese company bought it, and then improved it significantly. In particular, the function of locations. You see, these kind of a dating app is very important. You know who are the people around you that you can hang out. So that once it's improved this location function, it become really popular. And that's what the U.S. government come in saying, national security, you have to sell it back to the U.S. investors. And that's what happened. With that is when China quickly enacted a national security law
Yeah.
saying any company has sensible technology, the sales of that need to be approved by the Chinese government.
Yes.
That's when the TikTok happened. All these things. So
Yes.
I think that what China does right now with the next period is almost like for that reason as well as more than anything else, it's like, okay, our parts of the companies, you cannot exporting anything. It's a ban on
Yeah.
because you don't know what they're exporting, right? It could be sensible technology and products and stuff like that. So we will see what happens.
That is exactly right, and it makes complete sense because
Mhm.
if you're going to be exposed to this predatory stealing of your
Yeah,
companies,
yeah,
then
mhm,
you want to at least protect your intellectual property rights.
yeah,
Can I just say something here? I mean, one of the most frustrating things over the last 30 years is this constant story about China stealing intellectual property right. By the way, I ought to say I was never an intellectual property lawyer, but I
mhm,
had a lot of dealings with intellectual property matters extending back to the 1980s,
mhm,
and I never came across any issue with
mhm.
China there. I mean, and bear in mind, I worked in London, where had there been problems with Chinese thefts of intellectual property, I am confident that I would have come across it. But anyway, put all that aside.
Mhm.
Who is really setting out to steal things?
Yeah, yeah,
who is actually doing that now?
mhm, yeah. And one aspect of it is, again, the Western media probably doesn't talk about is probably Russia is pretty happy now because all these things related to weapon, right? Lots of things related to weapon.
Yeah,
And the latest one, there's another thing that not people pay attention is actually China also put some control on diamond. Now, diamond is also very important. It's important for some weapons, but also precision instruments who are
yeah.
helping to make weapons. And there is a Russian media that actually pointed out is saying something like, finally, we have been waiting for you to do something about diamond, so I don't know exactly what's the
Yeah.
story there, but it sounds to me like because Russia needs some rare earth mineral, I'm pretty sure they will get it. But
Well, I read the Russian media; they're all over this story, by the way. And I may as well say, I mean, they're saying to themselves, "What is?" And I don't think this. I mean, there's no secret about this. The Russians are
Mhm.
saying that what they are likely to get from this time going forward is much more Chinese investment,
Yeah.
because since it is becoming difficult for China to establish businesses in Western countries.
Hmm.
Russia does have a lot of technologies. It,
Yeah.
it is,
Uh-huh.
by the world's leading producer of diamonds. It is very
Hmm.
strong in nuclear power engineering. It is advanced in aircraft engine technology, in gas turbines, and all of those things. So now, finally, the Chinese are starting to see, well, these are the reliable partners. They're the people who've got things to offer. I mean, they are watching all of this
Hmm.
with great interest. And you're absolutely right. They say to
Hmm.
themselves, well, if the Americans are going to have problems getting, Chinese expertise into their weapons production chain, well, that is entirely good for us. I mean, we don't have those problems. We don't have any problems sourcing our rare earths from China. Of course not. By the
No.
way, you may be interested to know the Russians want to establish co-production with China
Uh-huh.
in Russia
Uh-huh.
for Russian rare earths.
Yeah.
They say we have all these enormous deposits.
Uh-huh.
We can refine them up to a certain point, but we
Yeah.
want to refine them further. So why don't you all come in
Yeah.
and we can do it together? Just to say,
Yeah. Yeah. So the whole thing is very self-destructive for the
yes,
West
yeah,
in
yes,
general. Yeah.
yes,
Which
yes,
also leads to another point is there's a lot of I think I hear more and more, and I am now more and more convinced that maybe the Taiwan problem is getting closer.
yeah,
You see, the problem, the reason that China hasn't taken Taiwan is not because militarily they can't. They
mm,
can. They can very quickly.
fine,
There's all kinds of ways. Blockade is another way to do it. They don't probably even need to do the military thing. Just the blockade could be enough trouble. The reason they don't want to do it is they don't want to hurt any Taiwanese people because they are Chinese. In China's view, they are Chinese. Now, regardless of what they call themselves, but they're Chinese. I think that's a very big part of it. Overall, I think it is because China still want to keep a good relationship with the US and the
Yeah.
Europeans.
Yes.
But with the latest thing, it seems to me like the US and Europeans are the one who are pushing China away. If they already doing things that China think they will do once China take over Taiwan, then what's there for China? What's there to stop China from just get this done, get this thing?
I've heard exactly the same discussions. I in fact watched the whole discussion take place in Russia as well. That Russia held back in Ukraine for
Uh-huh.
many years because
Yes.
they want to jeopardize their relations with
Mm-hmm.
the West. They knew that the relationship with the West would go to pieces if they acted more aggressively in Ukraine. They felt that there was economic interdependence.
Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah.
wanted all of those to preserve all of those things. The West worked sanctions pressure on Russia relentlessly after the 2014 crisis. And the eventual moment came when the Russians said, enough's enough. We've got to
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
we're not gaining anything by being restrained. On the contrary, we're seeing Ukraine being rearmed and built up in order to fight us. And I suspect I'm sure people in China
Mm-hmm.
are saying exactly the same thing. And you're absolutely correct. I mean, Ukraine is a huge country with a very big population, large armed forces, stable supply
Yeah.
lines. Russia is not, I mean, it's a big country, but it's not on the scale that Russia is.
Mm-hmm.
If China acts against Taiwan,
Yeah.
the imbalance is much greater than
Yeah.
it is between Russia and Ukraine and Russia and the West. So, I mean, it's obvious to me that if there was a military operation in Taiwan, it would be over very fast.
Mm-hmm.
And as for the US Navy intervening, well, I think they should be very careful. I mean, I think if they get close to the Chinese coast, I mean, again, I'm not an expert on these things, but I think it would be devastating for them.
Mm-hmm. And I was talking to a Taiwanese guy. He lived in California, but his family's and everybody's there. He was telling me many times. He said, "I can guarantee you, Sophia, there won't be much resistance within
Mm,
Taiwan. That's very different from Russian and Ukraine
yeah,
situation. The people in mostly the politicians claim, we want independence. These are all very corrupted officials.
yeah,
They like to keep the status quo because they could corrupt. They don't want those are the very few, very small percentage of the Taiwanese people, the top politicians. They want to keep it status quo
yeah,
because they could, for example, when they buy weapons from the
right,
United States, they themselves got a cut. All right, they want that. So
yeah,
once it's unified, you can no longer have that. And he just giving me examples of the latest. Right now, the Kuomintang, the Nationalist Party, has a party leadership election, which will happen, I think, in a few days. And
mm,
he said that election normally should be pretty straightforward election. But now even that election is corrupted in the sense that they are open bidding. You do put bet on who is winning the leader.
yeah,
So the election becomes some kind of I
yeah,
don't know, a clown show that people are betting money on. Oh, who
yeah,
the women can win or the man can win. You cannot say this is a serious country when you have election basically openly, legal, I guess legally, allow people to bet on who the winner is. So
exactly.
he just gave me that example. He said as soon as China, the Chinese government declared that, okay, we're going to take action now. He said immediately, majority of the people will put their Chinese flag immediately up. So
Well, I mean, it's important to remember that Taiwan is part of China.
yes,
It says
yes,
so
yeah,
itself. I mean, so I mean, why would people in Taiwan resist the army of the
yeah,
country to which they belong? I mean, I mean, that is an immediate difference between Taiwan and Ukraine, because Ukraine was recognized by Russia as an independent country, and it was
hmm
always there was no question about its independence. Taiwan is not
yeah,
an independent country; its own government says so.
yeah,
As I always say, by the way, I've said this to a number of people in Britain, by the way, and I always get uh, astonished stares. If they really insist that they're an independent country, why don't they return or the treasures of the Palace Museum.
Yeah.
I mean, we know that Chiang Kai-shek stole them all from Beijing
Uh-huh.
and brought them to Taipei, and they're there. Well, but there's never been. I mean, it's even called the Palace Museum. So return it. I mean, but no, of course
Mhm.
not. I mean, they want to have their cake and eat it as well, as we say in Britain. They want to pretend that they're independent, even though at the same time they don't really want to say that they're independent. I don't think there'll be much resistance in Taiwan. I think people there are far too um, uh, far too well educated and well informed about the realities to put up that kind of resistance. There will be some people who are very fanatical and very indoctrinated, and they might put up some resistance, but I don't think that there will be enough to take on the Chinese army. Just
Yeah.
to say,
Yeah. Yes, that's pretty much the consensus. It's really the
yeah,
corrupted,
yes,
uh, politicians, and even for those corrupted politicians, they all have like a Western country's passport.
yeah,
They will
yeah,
run fast.
exactly, exactly.
But they are corrupted, so they make a lot of money, and they have overseas account, and their families, children are probably overseas already, and stuff like that. Just like Zelensky.
And it's an island
Yeah.
surrounded by seas, which
Uh-huh.
China is going to dominate. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the other difference with Ukraine. Ukraine has stable supply links
Yeah.
to the West. Taiwan doesn't.
No. No. Yeah. Yeah.